Coming up on Tech News today, RIM says crazy stuff and leaks delays about things. Microsoft makes upgrades cheap. That's good news. And Twitter goes transparent. All that and maybe Nilay Patel on an elephant. Coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, July 3rd, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use offer code TNT7. And they now offer free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions. And by Pond5, the world's stock media marketplace. If you're a media maker who needs stock video clips, photos, illustrations, music tracks, or sound effects, check out Pond5 for instant downloads at the best prices anywhere. Check out Pond5 at pond5.com. And for 25% off this month, use code TWIT25. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the world of technology and put them in context for you. We start with the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse. Microsoft announced the upgrade price for Windows 8, and it's almost OS X cheap. Whether you're running Windows XP, Vista, or 7, you'll be able to upgrade to Windows 8 Pro for $40. That's if you do it digitally. If you want a DVD, it gets a little more costly. You're going to plop down $70. That plastic is expensive, remember that. The price is temporary, though. Just in case you were on the fence, the promotion ends January 31st.
Twitter just released its first Twitter transparency report looking at data from January 2012 to the end of June. According to those numbers, the United States requested user information 679 times related to 948 accounts. Japan was number 2 with 98 total requests related to 147 accounts. Twitter said that it received more government requests in the first half of 2012 than the entirety of 2011.
Now, I'm sad Sarah Lane's still on vacation this week because it's getting all patent wars in here. We actually got a lot of patent wars. I'll start you off, Iyaz. You can back clean up. Leading off, Nokia alleges that the Google Nexus 7 uses Wi-Fi technology covered by Nokia patents. Neither Google nor Asus approached Nokia about licensing, according to Nokia. So far, this one's just a war of words. They have not filed a claim yet.
It also looks like you won't be able to get a Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1 in the U.S. because Judge Lucy Koh refused to lift an order to ban sales of the tablet. However, Apple could not stop HTC from importing its phones. The ITC denied Apple's emergency request to have HTC devices like the Evo 4G, LTE, and One X banned in the United States. Oh, and Kodak gets to sell its patents despite Apple's complaints. So there you go.
Late Monday evening, we found out that Google's Eric Schmidt sent a letter to the European Commission responding to allegations of improper behavior in the search market. The deadline was yesterday. And Google offered a settlement. The EC described 4 areas of concern regarding the search giant's behavior. No word on what Google's settlement offer might look like.
Now, stop me if you've heard this one. Apple walks into China, and a Chinese company sues Apple for use of a trademark.
I've heard that one.
It's almost a ProView deja vu. A Chinese chemical company is suing Apple over snow leopard. The company has used the snow leopard branding for electrical equipment production since the year 2000. A hearing is scheduled for July 10th, and the company wants approximately $80,000 and an official apology from Apple.
Wow. $80,000 and an apology. That's a bargain. You know, you can't resell software in most cases because you just own a license to use it. You don't actually own the software. It depends on where you are in the world. U.S. allows a resale. But the EU Court of Justice has upheld the right to sell licenses for downloaded software. Oracle was suing UsedSoft, which resells old Oracle software licenses. And according to the Court of Justice, sellers are required to destroy their copies or make them unusable after they sell off the license code. And you're not allowed to split up a bulk license and sell it off in pieces, code by code.
Linux users are complaining that they are facing permanent bans from playing Diablo 3 because their operating system is unsupported. The complaint started a couple of weeks ago at Wine HQ forums and has since spread to Blizzard's forums. Blizzard says that playing the game on Linux will not get you banned. Cheating will.
So maybe these were cheating Linux
Potentially.
users that got banned. UK tech news site V3 reports that the UK Home Secretary Theresa May will not try to block extradition of British student Richard O'Dwyer. We've talked about this previously on TNT. The U.S. wants to force O'Dwyer to stand trial in North America for the alleged crime of linking to copyright infringing material from a website that he has since shut down. Wikipedia co-founder Jimmy Wales started a petition drive to oppose the extradition and says the Home Office has not said no yet. Wales claims that a spokesperson just read a statement, a standard statement to V3, and that the Home Secretary may yet act on the extradition.
Everybody get excited. It's time for some accounting news. Microsoft took a $6.2 billion accounting charge known as a write-down of goodwill for the acquisition of Aquantive, an advertising company Microsoft picked up way back in 2007. Aquantive is part of Microsoft's online service division, and the charge will pretty much knock out Microsoft's fourth quarter profit.
You got E. Kardashinsky all excited in the chat room.
Great.
Pivot tables. Hurrah.
Hooray.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Squarespace.com. A free domain registration with the plans. This is one of the best things ever. Squarespace, as we've told you, is a great place to host a website. Reliable 24/7 service, great templates, easy way to make a good-looking website without having to break a sweat. And now you get free domain registration when you sign up, making the site easier than ever to get you up and running with your own domain name branded website. That's a $15 retail value, approximately, depending on where you register it. And you get to keep that domain name. Squarespace also still giving you 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That means 10% off the first month on monthly plans, 10% off the first year on annual plans. Somebody in the chat room was like, how come you never mentioned the 2-year plan? That gives you even more of a discount. You get 10% off if you buy 2 years all at once. So go check it out. You don't even have to take our word for how good it is. I use it for Sword and Laser. I use it for my book, United Moon Colonies. Go try it out yourself. You don't need to give them a credit card or anything. You don't have to drop a dime. Just go put in the name of your website, create a website, play around with the tools, see what the templates look like. You can even get under the hood, edit some HTML and CSS if you want. We think you'll like it. And if you do, remember this code, TNT7. That's the code that gets you that 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. And don't forget about the free domain registration with your annual plan subscription. That's squarespace.com. Use that offer code TNT7. And we thank Squarespace for their support. All right, Nilay Patel is going to join us as soon as he gets in. He's got a little delay.
Yeah, a little delay on the train.
So we've saved the patent store discussion to the end of the show for you, Nilay. Don't worry. Let's start with an easy one, though. Microsoft giving us that cheap Windows upgrade plan.
Windows 8 Pro, like you mentioned, $40 for XP and higher. Now, this is extraordinarily aggressive pricing. It's running only till January 31st, though. So obviously after that, odds are the price will go up. I mean, if Microsoft effectively wants everybody to move to 8, they think it's their future. But do you think $40 is going to get people to switch up from Windows 7 or from XP even? Because XP is so stable, people hate moving away from that.
It's pretty enticing. You know, I feel like 30. I guess you could always say this. If they had said 30, I might be saying 20. But I feel like $30 would have been more enticing. But $40 is pretty good. I'm not gonna be upset about that. In fact, I'll probably take advantage of this on my Windows 7 machine for sure. I think what they're really trying to do is push people off of XP. They have so many people. We talked about the share yesterday in the news fuse. They have so many people still using XP. It's the second most popular operating system, and depending on how you judge it, sometimes it's actually considered more popular than the other flavors of Windows, and they don't want to have to continue to support it. It's getting into the point where they're ready to retire support or at least reduce support, and that's costly for them to continue.
Yeah, and they also stuck to a cheaper price for downloads. It's $40. And this is an interesting little twist. If you get a download and make your own bootable USB or ISO file, you can get a backup DVD for $15. So total cost would be $55. If you want to buy the DVD itself, it costs $70 at retail. So they are
$15 for the shipping and for the having to blah, blah, blah. Well, no, wait a minute. If you make an ISO of it yourself, why do you need to pay $15 for another
If you
DVD?
want a backup one, you don't have to buy it if you don't want to.
Oh, I see.
But the idea is, I mean, it just seems like Microsoft is trying to go and push people to digital downloads in general. There's really no reason they want to send out discs in the mail that can break and go, oh, well, I don't. This doesn't work for us. I think it's interesting because what they're going to do is get people used to the Windows Store, where you're going to go online and get your applications. If you can get used to the idea of downloading your operating system from a Microsoft world, because that's still somewhat new. I mean, I know you could download previews and things. I think that move is just a good sign for Microsoft to say, hey, look, digital downloads are the way to go.
What about Media Center? You're a Media Center fanboy. I know you're always wondering what's up with Media Center in this situation.
I'm one of the people who used to go to the Green Button forums and all that other stuff and had Windows XP Media Center Edition. That's me. Okay, so back when Windows 8 was announced, it looked like Media Center was getting the boot. It wasn't going to be there anymore. Windows 8 proper, not Windows 8 Pro, will not have Media Center. Windows 8 Pro, if you do this upgrade or you buy this, will have Media Center as a free download. So if you want to have it, I mean, it won't be there automatically. It'll be there as an option. So I'm thinking, I mean, the original thing was Microsoft was claiming you would get it at a discounted price or a fair price or something like that. Now they're saying, no, we're going to just give it to you for free. Because one of the things that Windows 8 does is if you upgrade to it, not Windows 8 Pro, if you upgrade it, it takes Media Center out. So if you had it on 7 or XP or anything else, it removed an application, which is very unusual. Do you think this is going to settle the very angry masses? There were a lot of people upset about Media Center getting the boot.
I think it certainly people would rather have it just included in the install, but the fact that they can get it for free without paying extra, I think that Microsoft has probably diffused that issue. I do. You're the better person to ask though, because I'm not that excited about it.
There are features that were removed in Media Center for Windows 8 Pro that I find a little laughable. Microsoft removed the option to boot directly into Media Center. It's just an application that you can run.
Can't you just make anything like launch on boot?
No.
Any application?
You can't do that with desktop. Why would you be able to do that with Media Center? That's the thing. Like Microsoft removed some of these options that you were allowed to have.
That's not targeting Media Center. That's just the way Windows 8 works.
Right. Windows 8 says you show up and you're going to see tiles. That's what you're going to see. But I mean, a lot of the features that I saw in Media Center are replicated.
I'm going to put it in auto exec bat.
Oh, you can't go do that. You're going to break Microsoft's brain. You can't do that. I mean, I think I'd stick to Windows 7 still when it comes to, as a Media Center guy, I like it as a DVR. But I think this pricing is just pretty astonishing for Microsoft. Normally they charge over $100 for an upgrade, and it's just, I think it's going to get more people to go to 8.
I think they finally got it. Like, we really need to get people over to this, to this operating system. We can't continue to let them hang back. So let's compete on price, and that's a good. Microsoft doesn't have to compete on price. At least they don't think so. What they're competing on is with each other. All right, let's move on to Twitter's transparency tool, and I think we have Nilay on the line, right, Nilay?
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, thanks for making it, man. Sorry you had a little trouble getting in.
Yeah, look, I've been drunk on a beach for a long time, and time is a fluid concept.
We should say congratulations. Did you ride a horse today, or was that just at the wedding?
What's really funny is I wanted an elephant. Actually, to come down the street.
Yes.
And an elephant in the city of Chicago, to get an elephant, the permits cost $40,000.
I love that you looked into it, though.
Oh, man. We looked into it for like 6 months. And my uncle from India was like, look, for $40,000, I'll get you an elephant. You can just have it. And I was like, I don't need a permanent elephant.
But it's an extra 40 to ride it. Yeah, exactly.
No, so it was a horse. It was very challenging to ride a horse for like I believe it was like the 5th time in my life with like really high stakes. There was no saddle, so I was riding this thing down LaSalle Street in Chicago to come to my wedding, and I realized if I screw this up, I'm going to ruin my wedding day, which was fine. My best man hit me with a flask beforehand, and
it all turned out well, and you looked good in the pictures I saw. You look good on a horse.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back. I mean, after like 3 weeks of wedding insanity, it's good to get some semblance of normalcy back in my life.
Yeah. Enough honeymooning, enough relaxing. Let's talk about Twitter's transparency report. That's what's really important.
Absolutely.
They're pulling a page from Google here today, releasing a tool that shows how many times government requested user info, how many times government asked for content to be removed, and also wanting to know how many DMCA takedown requests they have gotten. So the U.S. government far and away leads the world in information requests for Twitter. 679 out of the 849 info requests were from the United States. Twitter says they complied with 75%. Japan, number 2 at 98. So is this just because most users are in the United States on Twitter, do you think?
I think that's actually a big part of it. Although Twitter has a huge sort of international, I mean, the whole Arab Spring kind of Twitter moment happened. But I think the United States also has the most process for getting this kind of information out of companies, right? The DMCA in the United States has a formal notice and takedown procedure. There is, within the Patriot Act, all this kind of information request stuff going on. So the government's clever. It gave itself tools, and now it's using the tools as much as it wants. Governments around the world will undoubtedly start giving themselves similar tools. The other thing with the release of the Twitter transparency tool just today is that they lost a case in New York. There was an Occupy Wall Street protester had tweeted some stuff. The government wanted it in their prosecution of him. And they went to Twitter and said, we need to subpoena these tweets, which is an amazing thing, I think, to ever say out loud if you're a prosecutor. And Twitter said no. And there was a big fight over it. And the judge eventually ruled, this person doesn't have a privacy interest in their public tweets, right? And even if they locked it down afterwards or whatever, because they were public and Twitter is providing the service, they have to turn over the user data. And so I think in response to that, in this case, been building for months and months now, in response to that, Twitter has begun building this tool because they realize that I think they're going to be on the wrong end of that argument kind of a lot going forward, especially as more people start to use Twitter as a primary method of mass communication. I think Twitter realizes that they can't say this is just a club that you're in and you're safe in Twitter. They have to say that the government's going to come look at stuff and we have to be responsible of how we share that stuff with governments.
I'm looking at the statistics. Brazil actually is the #2 country with the amount of Twitter accounts, over 30 million accounts. And for Brazil, they only asked for less than 10.
Right, they hid the accurate numbers in less than 10 because they were afraid people might be able to figure out who was requested.
And on top of that, Twitter complied with none of the requests for Brazil. So that's the #2 most used. It's the #2 country when it comes to Twitter users. So the United States having over 110 million users, or close to 110 million users, not that surprising that the U.S. likes to just get data all the time. It's just what it does.
Well, it's like I'm saying, the government gives itself the tools to, it's like if I came to your house and stole your TV, and then I said, well, there's a new rule in our friendship, I get your TV, so it's legal.
Yeah, and
that's kind of how the game the government's playing.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that rule.
Let's talk about a little clarification while we're speaking to social networks. Facebook, in episode 4 of the email controversy, talked to Alice Hamburger over at The Verge about what happened with the address syncing that we talked about actually happened. Facebook wanted to allow control over what email is visible on your page. So they say, look, all the email addresses were made invisible until you changed the setting. And as a result, your Facebook.com email became the default visible email because that's one, if they're looking at your page, they can figure out what it is. So we figured that one's safe to put up there. I have my own thoughts about whether they should have just left it blank or not. But okay, that makes sense of why at Facebook.com. They're trying to do the right thing, right? They're trying to say, look, we got this new visibility setting. You're going to have to opt into making things visible. That's the right way to do it. Then separately, not related to that change at all, Facebook experienced a bug that only synced the most recently added email address instead of a primary email address. So if someone was saying, keep my contacts updated from Facebook, the bug would say, well, the most recent email address is Facebook.com because most people have not updated their email address in Facebook since Facebook introduced the @Facebook.com email address. And so that overrode it. The contact sync API bug has been fixed. And once that sync starts to propagate, you should see primary email addresses show back up on your devices. All of this makes perfect sense. I understand what happened. Facebook's not trying to be evil. Everybody calm down. But the question is, why do we need a Facebook.com email address in the first place? Because if they didn't have one, then the visibility settings wouldn't have been an issue because you would have just had nothing show up. I think that would have been a better choice. And you wouldn't have had this Facebook.com email address forced in as the most recent one in anybody's account.
Well, they rolled out those email addresses to kind of great. By the way, do I sound better? I switched to my internal mic.
Yeah, it does sound better.
Good. They rolled out those email addresses to kind of great fanfare over a year ago, right? And they were like, we're reinventing email. We see the teens are out there. They're just using Facebook messages. We'll graft that onto email and make it work. And it just didn't happen. I mean, it's like they didn't commit to it enough to say this should be your. And so this is kind of, I think, yeah, they're saying we want to hide your email addresses, but I think most people don't care. That you're already setting what email addresses are shown on Facebook. So it's one thing to, play this game of, well, we're making sure, we're not sharing this information. But I think this is also them saying, I mean, in a way, they're saying, by the way, you have a Facebook.
A happy side effect is that the Facebook.com email address showed up and reminded me, among many other people, that it existed because I'd totally forgotten about it.
With a ton of bad press.
Yeah, with a ton of bad press. And the contact sync thing is like, if you are in charge of any service, any back-end service that people sync to, you can't run around screwing with that data, ever, in any way, shape, or form, without at least saying to people you can revert to the previous state. And I think Facebook is beginning to realize that there is a lot more syncing with Facebook data going on than they'd even previously imagined.
And they should want that to happen. That's my point. And they should be very careful with that. I don't think a lot of people are going to trust that. A lot of people will probably shut that off now.
And as many times as we say people overshare on Facebook, people have a tendency to be even more private in an email, and Facebook can get more data to scrape to give you better ads. like Gmail gives you. I get these great ads for all kinds of things, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't realize I was really in the market for a watch or a guitar. But apparently you've been reading my email. So I don't really put those things up on Facebook. If Facebook can get more data and you're just, oh, well, I accidentally emailed your Facebook account because we were talking about where do we want to go for dinner, and they were giving us options, well, they have even more data, and that's what Facebook is selling. They have your data, and they can sell you as an ad. Sell you an ad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is that my new brother-in-law, who's 20, doesn't do email, just does Facebook messages. I always ask him what his email address is, and he's like, I don't know, Facebook. So
yeah.
There's an element of that out there.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's a growing element. And it's not just Facebook. It's Twitter. It's Path. It's, get in touch with me with whatever way you normally interact with me rather than electronic mail. That's for old fogies.
That's cross-platform.
That's for old married people.
And accessible everywhere.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for today's show, Pond 5, the world's stock media marketplace. If you need the sound effects of someone eating a cheeseburger while penguins fly overhead, this is the place to go to look. You could also get a big bullet dream sequence shoved in your face. It's one of the best ways to bring your production to the next level. If you're making media of any kind, you might need some photos. You might need some vector illustrations. You might need some music tracks or sound effects or motion graphic templates. You're probably going to need one of those things. And you're probably not want to risk going out and just finding it somewhere out there. You want to make sure it's something that you have the right to use. Download it from Pond 5 instantly for legal use in virtually any media production. You can get establishing shots, helicopter shots, elephants waiting.
I'm looking for Nilay
stream.
on one of these elephants, and I can't find it.
You could just post-production, put yourself right on top of one of those. Pond 5 also a dynamic marketplace where you can upload pro-quality content, set your own prices, and receive industry-leading royalties on every sale, which means prices are unbeatable. So go check it out. If you're a media maker if you work with video, images, or sound, even if you're just print, you're just doing layouts. The clip art type stuff here is unbeatable. Pond 5 has a special offer for our audience members too. 25% off your purchase this month when you use the coupon code TWiT25. That's pond5.com. Use that coupon code TWiT25. Elephants are standing by.
That's right.
And I thank Pond 5 for their support of Tech News Today. We got another update in the number of phones that have ice cream sandwich, eh?
Right. So over at the Android developer site, there's a report showing off data collected during 14 days ending on July 2nd, 2012. And it's showing how many devices are accessing the Google Play Store. And depending on the headlines you're reading, either Google has finally gotten people up to 10% or ice cream sandwiches only on 10%. So either they have failed miserably or they've done a really great job in transitioning people over. Ice cream sandwich is it's at 10.9% of devices, which is 4.0 and higher. Gingerbread is still the leader with 2.3 and higher with 63% or like 64% of the user base. And the thing is, this is actually
Android 2.3.
That's 2.3.
Yeah, 2.3 has 2/3.
And the thing about this, though, because this study is about Google Play access, technically this shouldn't include Kindle Fires because Kindle Fires that are not modded don't have access to Google Play. So a lot of those cheapo devices that don't have Google Play access aren't accounted for in this, which I would imagine the number is even greater when you started including those. But does it matter that ice cream sandwich is only at 11% when Android is over 50% of the smartphone market?
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely. Because, 2.3 is great, but that's not where developers need to be. That's not where the state of the ecosystem needs to be, right? You need to be pushing everything forward. And, even with Jelly Bean, which just came out last week, I mean, it's great. We did a review of it today that I think Dieter published. And they're making a lot of big changes to that operating system. Google Now is like really wild. And if you don't have that in kind of consumers' hands, and if you don't give it to people, then the rate of innovation slows, right? Apple doesn't have to respond to Google Now if nobody has Google Now. It's just an abstract idea. So Google, I mean, and you remember last year at I/O, Google promised that they were going to work with manufacturers to push out these updates faster, right? To bring more updates to more devices within 18 months of release. And it's just kind of not, that all just fell apart. I have a real sense, and I'll probably take a lot of heat for this, but I know I share it with a lot of other people, that Android and the way Android is used on devices by carriers, manufacturers, has somewhat gotten out of Google's control. And they need to find a way to kind of bring it back in and give people the latest version of their operating system. And it's been a year or whatever since Ice Cream Sandwich is out, and 10% is like nothing,
Yeah, they made a big promise last year that they were going to make sure everybody got Ice Cream Sandwich, and it definitely did not happen. So this year they tried it again, and they said instead of going on that end, we're going to try getting the code to people earlier so that they can test it and make sure they put it out. But at the same time, Jelly Bean's now available. You can put it on phones, and it's on the Nexus 7. So they also accelerated the release. I don't know what the solution is, but it's not about, to me, it's not even about fragmentation anymore. It's about having an organization that will make sure that people are getting the best software on the device that they can. You can go and do it. You can get CyanogenMod. You can put it on your device yourself, but that is not for the average person. And I don't know what advantage carriers think they're getting in delaying this, or whether it's just bureaucratic inertia. I mean, Jason, what's your perspective? You're the All About Android host. You're following this pretty closely.
I mean, I think there is probably a lot of bureaucracy just based on the fact that the carriers, they have their desire to keep everything differentiated, and they kind of hold it back. Maybe part of what Google is doing here, what we saw at this year's I/O, is kind of an expansion of their Nexus project. Maybe that's what they're doing, is they're saying, look, we're hopefully, maybe by year's end we have more Nexus devices, and that is your gateway into the bleeding edge, the latest and greatest version of Android. The problem is that the general consumer doesn't know that when they go into the Verizon store to pick out a phone, especially the people that aren't necessarily in the Android world to begin with and that are thinking about Android. They don't know. They probably don't understand kind of the depth of kind of the differentiation between all of the hardware in the Android landscape, and don't understand why that should matter to them. To some people, though, you have to understand, some people don't care about that stuff. Even if they're on Gingerbread or some earlier version of Android, it does all of the things that they need it to do, and they're okay with that.
Yeah, but you can't drive a market forward with
absolutely you can't.
Right. And I think the other thing that's really interesting about what you're talking about, the expansion of the Nexus program, Nexus 7, man. No LTE, no 3G, no carrier involvement. I mean, Google, and same with Surface. Microsoft, they're making a tablet. They don't want AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile or whoever to get in the way, and they're just going direct to consumers. And there's kind of a lot to be said for exactly how much the carriers are involved here. And you can say, well, Android adoption is slow. But it's not really Android adoption. It's carrier adoption of what Google's do. I bet Google wants everybody to be an ice cream sandwich.
Absolutely.
Eric Schmidt ran around for a year saying our #1 goal is to get everybody an ice cream sandwich. But that wasn't, Vodafone's goal. It wasn't AT&T's goal. So there's that relationship, I think, is very, very broken between Google. It's, the Google-Verizon partnership used to be very tight. It seems, the Galaxy Nexus was kind of late getting out, right, on Verizon. And it seems like there's just been a lot of distrust between Google and its carrier partners. And that's kind of what I mean when I say that the operating system has gotten out of Google's control. They're starting to take it away from what Google wants to do and start to do what they want to do. And I'll just go on the record and say what carriers want to do is almost always bad for consumers. And that's just a problem.
I mean, does Google need like a brick and mortar presence? I know they have a bunch of little Google pop-up stores in around the world, and they've done this with their Chromebooks where they're trying to explain things. I mean, if what Microsoft's doing with the Surface is they're controlling the message in their stores, they're going to show you how this works. This is their product. Apple does the same thing. They can educate a consumer totally differently than a carrier would. Does Google need like a pop-up store, mini stores of their own to get people to understand, hey, look, this is the Nexus. This is the version that they need.
That's not a bad idea, but I think what Google needs is what the rest of us needs, which is carrier competition. The reason that the carriers don't care is because they know that they don't have to care to increase their market share.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only functionally 2 of them. By the way, I have a really interesting question for you. Will Amazon sell the Nexus 7?
You mean, will you be able to order it from Amazon? I think if they're allowed to, sure. Amazon seems to not care about that sort of thing. They set their own Kindle software team against the Kindle hardware team. So if Google will let them sell it, I bet they would.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I mean, because otherwise we're gonna. I mean, buying it from the Play Store is great. That's fine. But are you gonna go to Best Buy? Best Buy's failing. All right, everyone else just kind of goes to Amazon, and I'm wondering how that relationship is gonna go.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Another really good question is, what the hell is up with RIM?
Okay, now, there are 2 stories in the news today. There's the leaked RIM roadmap. If last week RIM announced that BlackBerry 10 devices would not hit until Q1 of 2013, when it was expected to be the end of this year, which pretty much meant everybody thought they were dead. So the roadmap, you can see these. We have black rectangles. So we're going to have a 4G playbook in the 4th quarter, followed by a you can tell how excited I am. 2 BlackBerry 10 phones in the 1st quarter of 2013. One looks like it's a touchscreen. That's in London. And a keyboard-based one with the Nevada. And then nothing happens in Q2 for a while. And then Q3, there's the playbook as you hold it up. The Q3 Black Forest, it looks like it's a 10-inch tablet from RIM. So that's one part of the story. The other half is RIM CEO Thorsten Heinz, who's talking to CBC. And this is a quote. "There's nothing wrong with the company as it exists now." And another quote, "This company is not ignoring the world out there, nor is it in a death spiral." Nilay, if a CEO actually has to use the words death spiral, do you think, I don't know, protesting a little much?
Yeah, he also published a really long op-ed in the Globe and Mail where he was like, the next BlackBerry 10 will come out next year, and it not only will allow you to connect with people on social networks, but the world of embedded devices like parking meters and ATMs. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, are you just completely insane? Okay. And then the top of the editorial is like, there's also not a broader Canadian problem with making electronics. And it's like, I don't recall having that conversation either. I mean, I think right now he has to protest too much. I mean, what else is he going to do? If somebody asks you, are you in a death spiral? You can't be like, I don't know. Probably. So, I mean, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see why you might ask that.
I think BlackBerry, what they need to do, I think they need to embrace sort of the Osborne effect, right? Right now in sort of the developed world, people aren't buying BlackBerry devices, right? They're buying Android, they're buying iPhone. Some people are buying Windows Phone. People are not really buying BlackBerry. They're doing really well in developing countries. So that's great, but I don't think developing countries care about BlackBerry 10. I think they need to take this roadmap and actually publish it and say, this is what we're going to do. And say, wait for us, BlackBerry faithful, hold on to that curve for another year. And then we're putting out this thing. And, that's it goes against a lot of kind of what Apple would do or what Microsoft does, where you show the thing and you ship it right away. But they don't really have a choice, right? I mean, they have to get people excited about BlackBerry somehow. And the products that they're showing are really boring. So if you're going to run around saying that you're developing a phone that's going to connect to all the parking meters in the world, like, you have to show exactly how that's going to work, and make people excited about it, and explain why exactly you'd want to connect to all the parking meters in the world. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there insisting that you're not in a death spiral while people wonder what your products are going to be. And why not just say, look, you're not going to buy this BlackBerry this year. We get it. Go buy an iPhone. A year from now, this is the product that's going to blow that thing away. I don't think they have any massive competitive advantage to show off or to keep a secret from Apple and Google. I think they need to just show their faithful customers exactly how BlackBerry will be relevant to them again, and start getting developers on board and do all the things they need to do to launch with an ecosystem and excitement, instead of just promising that they're going to do it, which is what they're doing now.
When Thorsten Heinz took over, he said all the right things. Like, look, we have challenges. I'm going to admit, we've got to overcome some things. I think what's striking here is this interview reads as if it were with Balsillie and Lazaridis from before Heinz took over. It's almost as if he says, okay, now it seems like we've fixed all our problems, and everyone's looking at you like, no, you haven't. And you're exactly right, Nilay. If you fixed all the problems, show us the fixes. Don't keep delaying things until after the first of the year.
And there's a lack of sense of urgency when it comes to RIM. I mean, like Stephen Elop, we saw that leaked memo that Nokia is a burning platform and we have to switch and do a bunch of stuff. And that's when Windows Phone became Nokia's best friend forever. But you don't see that coming out of RIM. You see the roadmap, and nowhere does it say panic, we are running out of time. It just says, we have a rectangle coming for you on the Q3. It's like, come on, show some fear, show something, some heart. You Canadians, you can emote. It's okay. I think it's all right. Just try.
Hey, get drunk and watch some hockey, and then talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. This is that you know how to do this. We know. We've seen Vancouver after a Stanley Cup.
Oh my gosh.
Let's.
It's terrible.
I know it's too soon.
Too soon.
Well, not quite
Andy
too soon,
Griffith.
but it's
It's
just
sad.
wrong. Let's finish up with some patent trolls' cost to the economy. Ars Technica has this story. James Besson and Michael Muir have released a study arguing that non-practicing entities, or sometimes called patent trolls, cost the economy $29 billion a year. Now, these same guys did a story previously that estimated the cost at $83 billion. That was based on stock price. This study used direct costs, things like legal fees that go to the lawyers, licensing fees paid at the end of a trial, etc. They surveyed 83 companies. Well, 83 companies responded to the survey, and they found that what happens is the median cost is much less than the mean. So the median cost means, like, if you put half of the low numbers below and half the numbers above, $230,000 for a large company, $180,000 for a small to medium company at the end of a lawsuit. However, the average, the mean, $7.27 million for a large company, $1.33 million for a small company. Out-of-court settlements have the same sort of spread, where the average price is very high because there are a few ridiculously large settlements that kind of throw off the spread, whereas the median, still big, you're still talking 6 figures, but quite a bit smaller than the average. Also, they point out only a small amount of the money made by non-practicing entities is spent on acquiring patents from small inventors at 7%. Data for this came through the RPX Corporation. They're an interesting organization. They're a patent-holding company. They're a non-practicing entity themselves, actually. They don't litigate, though. They acquire patents from other NPEs and then relicense them to the member corporations.
Yeah, they're Intellectual Ventures Junior. I mean,
yeah.
That's what they are. Yeah.
So what do you, Nilay, what do you make of this study? I mean, it does sound like a lot of money being wasted, but as a percentage of the research, $247 million, some of that money is definitely going to trickle down to the inventors, either the individual small inventors or the companies. It is a big number, but is it indicative that there is a problem with non-practicing entities?
Man, I don't know the answer to that question at all. So here's a really good example. 2 great examples of non-practicing entities. One is Intellectual Ventures and RPX, right, which buy up a lot of patents and buy up a lot of IP generally, and then they try to turn that into some sort of economic gain to them, and they do it in ways that are, that seem kind of cute and fuzzy, like RPX, we're going to just relicense. In ways that seem incredibly shady and weird, like Intellectual Ventures, we're going to start dozens of shell companies and basically just be evil geniuses, right? So that's weird, and you don't want those guys. You also don't want the little trolls who buy 1 patent and sue everybody. But then you do want non-practicing entities like Stanford, right? Or the University of Wisconsin, or, whatever, big research institutions. Because they actually, Stanford paid for Larry Page and Sergey Brin to develop PageRank under their university. And then so they got the patent, and then Google, they went off and started a company, and they licensed the patent from Stanford. And Stanford got a bunch of money out of it. That's a good result. We want that to happen.
That's the patent system working right there. That's
right.
The heartwarming story.
That's the heartwarming story. And the trouble with taking the shotgun approach to NPEs or NIPPEs, as I like to call them, is that if you blast Intellectual Ventures out of the water, you have to make damn sure you're not going to take Stanford and the University of Michigan out of the water too, because you don't want to detract from the good results. You want to de-incentivize investment into promising young students who might get a patent and then go off and start a company based on the patent that you've invested in. And I don't think Intellectual Ventures is a good idea. we have actually stopped covering patent troll suits at The Verge because I don't want to give them any more publicity. And they do all settle for what seem to be kind of trivial amounts of money, right? $180,000, $200,000. It's the huge ones. It's the RIM suit again. What was the name of that company? NP something. Do you know what I'm talking about? The case against RIM.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that was years ago. It's those results that are like kind of insane, right? But the vast majority of it seems to be the market kind of settling itself out. And you have to be able to say, I invented this, and I should be owed some money for it. The big questions are, where do we draw the lines about what you invented? Where do we draw the lines about what you can get in return for your invention? And that's the overhead we're seeing here. Right, we're seeing a lot of these arguments over, is that a real invention? Is that worth being patented? The technical term would be patentable subject matter. And if it is, what do I owe you for it? Do I owe you anything? Am I even using this? And that's this churn, this sort of patent lawsuit churn that we're seeing that is kind of, in some ways wasting a lot of money. But in other ways, it's allowing other, legitimate businesses and legitimate researchers to make money. And the balance, we have to get that balance back in order. I don't think it's as simple as saying NPEs are bad, because you will take good results out of the system. Well,
this is just the way the headline is spun. The cost economy, $29 billion. This money is going into the economy. You're paying lawyers. You're going to have, it's like its own cottage economy thing going. It's kind of like iPad cases, or like, I don't mean iPad trademark.
The trickle-down theory? Lawyers spend money too?
Lots of money, right? I mean, it's just it's just like a side effect of the way the system is. But I mean, $29 billion is a lot of money. I'm kind of curious, put that in context with everything else. I mean, how much is that? I mean, $29 billion, again, sounds huge. But how much money is an iPad making? Or how much money is a trademark making? Any of that stuff in here, or patents in general. It just seems like, all right, that just sounds like a really sexy number for a headline. Like, oh yeah, it costs $29 billion. Well, what does that mean? Not a whole lot.
I actually don't know why they put in the amount of settlement money in there, because that's a company's revenue, right? So you're not taking that out of the economy. You're just moving it somewhere. And another company that participates in the economy is making money somehow. So I don't know. I mean, yes, we should reduce the number of non-practicing entities that file patent lawsuits. And yes, there should be mandatory licensing for patents in a lot of cases. But those are the real conversations. The patent lawsuits are bad and everybody's wasting money conversation. It's kind of like, yeah, we get it. Let's start talking about solutions.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, how much of this money should be spent on settling license agreements? How much should be spent on actually just licensing and doing research and development? And I think what these stories are trying to say is we're wasting money and wasting time in trying to figure all this stuff out, when we should just be having a system that works better and we don't have to go to court all the time. And I think everybody, even the lawyers, would probably like to spend less time in court, because the lawyers still make money in just reviewing the contracts and the licenses. They'll be fine. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
So this is just funny. The Verge and a few other places reported that the jelly bean statue that was erected during Google I/O last week has melted. Android engineer Dan Morrill posted the picture of it, saying jelly bean is so ridiculously hot that the statue overheated and his head partially melted and popped off.
Oh,
that's amazing.
So, Jason, you've had the Nexus 7 for a while. Does Jelly Bean run hot?
Not that hot.
No,
I actually haven't noticed that on the device, but then I don't have one of those Jelly Bean container things. Actually, Chad has one at his desk. So if the head pops off because it overheats, then I guess it's a common occurrence in Jelly Bean.
I wonder if the Jelly Bean's all melted to this giant major thing, like this. Like
there it is. Be careful; it might explode.
It might explode. The overheating jelly bean.
It gets really hot down in Mountain View.
Yeah, it does.
They just.
Unfortunately, you know what? They also mentioned that with the head popped off, somebody stole a jelly bean out of the container.
Really?
Yeah, somebody took a jelly bean. So that's why they actually have it, blocked off with these cones.
Yeah, that's going to stop.
I know, right?
That's
super effective.
Yeah.
The jelly beans contain the source code.
That yellow tape is going to keep everybody out. All right, let's check what's on the calendar.
Sure. July 6th, you can get your hands on a Samsung Galaxy S3 in AT&T stores. And on the 24th, some company called Apple is going to do quarterly earnings.
I hear they make some money.
I hear that too.
We'll keep an eye on them. What's incoming?
Incoming message.
Oh, it's a message. Yeah,
as usual.
We got a voicemail. We were talking about AMC and Dish having their issues. AMC is going to be dropped, or I think it is dropped from Dish over a contract dispute. You've got till July 15th to figure this out. Dish Breaking Bad is coming. Well, actually, this caller has a different perspective.
Hey, TNT crew, this is Wayne from Fresno, California. Hey, I was just calling. I called into Dish Network the other day because I was upset that they got rid of AMC, and I was wondering what the status was. They said it was permanently removed from their programming, but they were going to offer me a Roku XD to supplement my AMC wanting to watch, and they would give me any kind of credit I used on Amazon for any AMC shows. Pretty interesting that a satellite provider would use a Roku box or even an Apple TV that they were suggesting to watch shows that could be on their own programming. Thanks a lot, guys. I love the show.
Most interesting part about that to me is the fact that Dish's big complaint about AMC is that they have been selling their shows on iTunes too soon after they air, thus undermining the value of AMC to Dish. And then they go and they give one of their subscribers, we'll just give you a Roku. You go buy it on Amazon. That's fine.
I wonder, is it cheaper to provide Dish customers individual access to episodes than it is to pay AMC? Like, I mean, if everybody does this, if everybody calls up Dish and goes, hey, I want free episodes like the caller did, I think at some point they have to go, I think we have to talk to AMC. We can't afford this.
I don't know. Maybe AMC really wants that much money per subscriber. I got an email from Drew. Says, I'm listening to you guys talking about Sony's purchase of Gaikai and how Gaikai has partnerships with manufacturers like LG and Samsung. I think this could be one of the most crucial pieces of the purchase because a lot of these manufacturers make phones as well as TVs. At E3 this year, Sony announced that they were opening up their PlayStation Mobile to platform to other Android manufacturers. At the announcement, all they had was HTC as a committed partner for this platform, but maybe they can use these partnerships and the streaming platform to bring a better mobile experience to more phones. What do you guys think of that idea from Drew? The idea that Sony uses Gaikai to stream games to your PlayStation certified phone.
I think it'll be a cold day in hell before Sony and Samsung ever make a deal to do anything.
That's for sure.
And
LG though, maybe.
I mean, LG is like Samsung's like sad little friend, like, it's like we always had this
just
running
as a Korean,
joke.
what?
No, it's like we had this running joke that like, Samsung copies Apple and then LG copies Samsung, and then you end up with this like third-rate clone of an iPhone. They're getting better, just the same way Samsung got better over time. But I don't see Sony needing to run out and get LG. It's not going to help them expand the market share of whatever PlayStation platform they end up building with Gaikai. I think they're going to bring PlayStation. I think if I was Sony and I had just bought Gaikai, what I would want to do is make PlayStation basically go everywhere, right? So I'd build it into, now it's cheap, right? You can build it into every TV. You can build it into every DVD player you sell or Blu-ray player you sell. You can take the PlayStation 4 and turn that into the centerpiece of your home entertainment stack, but then take PlayStation gaming out to all these other pieces of your home where you don't necessarily need a PlayStation 4. And I don't know if getting on Samsung's phones is like necessary to do that, or getting on manufacturers' phones. What is necessary is like getting into every other piece of your house, because once you do that, I mean, they could theoretically release a Gaikai app for the iPad, right, and put PlayStation on the iPad, and that would be a huge coup for them. So I think there's a lot of potential there, but I don't know if striking more partnerships is what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, I think well, any company, LG would be jumping at the chance because they want to one-up Samsung. And HTC, they kind of do some weird things from time to time. They bought Beats, and then Beats bought Mog, and they have their own radio systems, and they have deals with Dropbox. So HTC is a bit nimble and a little crazy when it makes its plans. So I could see HTC paying money to Sony to go, hey, can we have this? Maybe as an exclusive on ours, because we would love it.
Well, that's what I was saying yesterday, and it's similar to what you're saying, Nilay, is that what Sony should do is say the PlayStation is our centerpiece, but you can play in the PlayStation universe anywhere through the Gaikai service, and they should actually be saying, of course LG and Samsung can carry our service. We're going to partner with them. We're not going to give them anything. We're going to take their customers by getting their customers addicted to PlayStation. I think that makes sense.
We put an app in the Play Store.
Yeah.
Here's here's PlayStation. We don't need to certify the hardware. It's all streaming over the cloud. So
exactly.
Just put the app in the store and get everybody on PlayStation that way.
All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks for everyone who's submitting stories in our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. Even if you don't have stories to submit, go in there and take a look at the stories that have been submitted and vote up or down. We take a look at that every morning when we decide what to cover on Tech News Today. Nilay, Patel, thank you as always. Been too long since we had you on the show. Great to have you on.
Great to be back, guys. Sorry I was a little bit late. By the way, has my video been super jerky this whole time? Because your video has been like a slideshow for me.
No, your video looks great.
I am just very still.
Yeah,
and I'm
very
super
stoic
jerky
man, Tom.
myself.
Yeah, I barely move. No, you've been looking great coming this way. So there must be a problem with our upload or your download. But you're looking good.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
And TheVerge.com, of course, where to find Nilay's work. Anything in particular you want to talk about that's going on over there?
I'm actually working on an editorial about all this carrier stuff, so look for that over the next couple of days.
Excellent. I will. I'm looking forward to that for sure. I'll keep my eyes out for that. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and you can give us a call and leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT show. No show tomorrow because of the Independence Day holiday here in the United States. We'll be back on Thursday with Justin Robert Young in the studio. We'll see you then.